for the click. Hear it? All this is done on a known good compressor coil and a known good circuit. If you'll notice, the readings is right about the middle. Between 2 and 5 ohms is a good circuit. So if you're blowing fuses, you don't need to do this next step, because you could cause more harm than good, because we're going to bypass the relay. Now, I recently had a viewer comment wanting to know, how can you tell if your compressor is bad? Now, in this video, we're working on the power side and not the control side of the compressor. Is my compressor bad? We're going to go through the electrical part. I'm James Noble. Let's get to it. Now we can remove our electrical center cover to gain access to our AC relay. We're going to pull our AC relay. We're going to take our test light, make sure it's got a good ground, and we're going to go on pin 30. Everything looks good. We can take and jump across pin 30 and 87 and see if our compressor engages. Now, if you don't have a light, you want to go up here to this 10 amp fuse. This is our AC fuse, and you're going to check it on both sides, make sure you've got a light there. If you don't have a light here, this fuse is blown. So now that we know we have power going to pin 30, now we can get us a jumper wire. You need it to be 14 gauge or bigger. We're going to put one in pin 30, and then we're going to take the other one and go in pin 87 and listen for the click. Hear it? Now that tells us our circuit is good all the way to the compressor. The ground circuit to the compressor is good. The clutch is actually working, whether it's holding or not. Now, if you don't have a click here, that's when we're gonna check that circuit going down to it. That means that's open, because we did confirm that our fuse was good and we had power going to our relay. What we're doing is we're bypassing all the safety measures and forcing this clutch to engage. So we've moved our relay to the side and we're just skipping the relay portion. And this test will actually tell us if the compressor is engaging. It has to engage, or our circuit from pin 87 going to our compressor, or our compressor ground is bad. So next, that's what we're going to do, is make sure that we've got a good ground and we've got a good circuit going to the compressor. If you don't have a click, check your compressor wire. Now, you do want to make sure that you've got your black lead on the battery ground and a red lead on 87 pin. You'll see why later on in the video. Now, at this point, if your windings, everything checks good, if you're within the 2 and 5 ohms resistance, you may have to physically come down here and look at your clutch and see if it's trying to move in while you've got it jumped. And you can take something and push it in. If it locks, your air gap is too big, so your clutch is starting to get wore out, so you're going to need to replace the clutch. Or if you're on the upper end of the 5 ohms, then your coil may be getting weak. So either way, you're going to need a new coil or clutch. So if you got any age on it, you're going to need a compressor. Now, if we have infinity, we're going to take and disconnect our clutch wire. We're going to look and see if there's any corrosion built up. We're going to reconnect it to see if it'll start reading a good reading in. If it is, we just had a bad connection at the coil. What we'll do is we'll go down to the compressor, we'll unplug it, and with our relay out, we'll take it and just jump it. We're going to jump across the 2 terminals. We're going to get us a reading again on pin 87, and we should have a very low resistance. If we do, that tells us our ground is good, and it also tells us our wire going to the clutch is good, which in fact tells us our clutch is bad. Now, while you've got your hand at the compressor wire, look and see if you get any real fluctuation. If you're now at infinity and you see it change, your most common issue is going to be at your connector. But if there's no change one way or another, we're going to disconnect our compressor. Start out with a high resistance, open. We're just going to take and jump our pins over, and this will tell us if our circuit is good and our ground is good. Now, this shows us that our ground is good and our wire going to our pin 87 is good. And if you take off the 2 the meter has resistance in itself, we're really at 4. We're below a half an ohm resistance. Now at this point, we know that our compressor clutch is bad because we got a real low resistance. But if you still have an OL after jumping these 2 wires, move on to the next step. Now remember, at first I told you we wanted to make sure our black was hooked to our ground on our battery. Now we're going to take our red lead, we're going to disconnect it, which actually this red lead went to our 87 pin, and now we can come down here and we can probe our wire for the ground. Now because we did it that way, we don't have to know which one of these pins is ground. We're going to probe them both, and we're going to watch our meter, and if one of them goes to ground and we get a good ground signal, we know our ground wire is good. Now if we still have an open here, we're going to take and swap these back. We can take and move our red wire back. And now we're going to go to our black wire, which disconnects it from the battery, and we're going to check our circuit from the compressor to pin 87. Now if it checks good, then we know our ground wire is broke somewhere between here and the side of the engine block. So once again, you can take and do your wiggle test and follow your harness, pulling on it, and see if you get some kind of fluctuation in your meter. You're getting close to wherever the break is. Now this concludes this video. I'm James Noble. As always, thank you for watching.